G'day crypto goers, time to look at Skycoin. Thank you to our crypto brother Nicholas for getting me onto this. Nicholas, I've been looking at this for ages. I have tried to make this video twice. This is the third attempt now because it's so big. I'm trying to refine it into something less than 3 hours. I'll try and get it done in less than 30 minutes. This is big, guys. I think this is, if it's half of what it says it is, this is the next Google of crypto. We have blockchain 1.0, which is Bitcoin. We have blockchain 2.0, which is Ethereum, Cardano, Litecoin, and this appears to be blockchain 3.0. This, if what they say is true, is bigger than anything that we can see on the crypto exchanges right now. It will essentially put a lot of companies completely out of business. It will see a lot of coins collapse. If this one goes through, this is the future Google of the blockchain space. So let's get straight into it. Alright, so it's a blockchain based project as we know, and it started many years ago. It's a cryptocurrency, just like, well, not just like any others, but fundamentally it is a cryptocurrency, but it's also energy efficient custom hardware. So when people say what is Skycoin, it is many things. It's cryptocurrency, it's energy efficient custom hardware. It is also focused on the elimination of mining rewards as such. It's a bit of a replacement of proof of work and proof of stake, and if you're a miner like me, this is quite appealing to you. And it also has an immense improvement on mining efficiency, not just the rewards, the actual energy that we need for it. You've seen my power upgrades for my ASIC miners. It's all getting a little bit silly at the moment, and we know it can't continue like this, and Skycoin saw this years ago and basically started to nut out the future. What's also better with this coin than other coins is the transaction speeds. They're comparable to credit cards. So we know that we can't use Bitcoin the way that we can use Visa and MasterCard when it comes to transaction speeds. We know that not even Litecoin can meet those transaction speeds. And we've looked at other ways of getting the transaction speeds up, but Skycoin appears to have cracked the code. And there's many ways they've done that, but it is faster than Bitcoin, and we know that we can't use Bitcoin in daily transactions. It's too slow. It's too slow. It doesn't mean it doesn't have a store of value, it just means that we can't use it daily. Gold has a store of value, but we can't use that every day. Can you imagine taking a block of gold into a shop, trying to buy something with that? Probably wouldn't work, even though it's got a real value, and I see Bitcoin as the same, whereas Skycoin, although it does have a store of value, it's much quicker. Which leads to the new internet. When I first heard this claim that Skycoin claims to be creating a new internet, I thought, well, that sounds like a crock. And of course, I remained curious and opened up my ears and looked into it, and it could be a new internet. I never knew there could be such a thing, but there is. If basically, let's use it America as an example. They have 2 ISPs in America, 2 major companies who do all the internet provision for all of America, excluding any government and military, of course. So if you're in America, you're basically, all of your information is filtered into these 2 internet service providers. Now, these 2 internet providers in America were going to merge and make a monopoly, but the government stepped in and said, no, that's too much power, we need you to separate. So now they just operate as an oligopoly, which is still has monopolistic features and characteristics to it, but it's just in 2 companies as a cartel. My whole point here is that the internet is supposed to be decentralized, and I thought, perhaps you thought as well, that the internet was decentralized. It's actually not. It all goes through one central point. That information can be stored, sold, tracked, hacked, etc. And Skycoin has made a whole new system through nodes as opposed to ISPs to make an internet which is not centralized. So the purpose of the whole project, I've listened to over, I don't know, probably 16 hours worth of interviews with Synth, the founder of the company and the leader. He's very passionate about this, clearly very intelligent. Many of the interviews were long, actually they're all long. Some were fun, some were not so fun, but all very interesting, and I got a lot out of it. So Synth tells us that this project commenced years ago, and it was commenced in the search for a better blockchain, and that being that it wanted to address the problems with Bitcoin and the Bitcoin network. As mentioned, Bitcoin is a sort of blue chip share and the first into the world of the blockchain space as such for us to use, but it's too slow. And Skycoin addressed this, not today or yesterday, but they started doing this nearly a decade ago. And there hasn't been much advertising and marketing, but now it's all getting out there, and we're going to see some big changes in my opinion. So it attempts also to avoid the centralization of mining pools. If you're a miner like me, whenever you try, to get ahead, you kind of have to join these big mining pools. If you want big returns, you have to join the big mining pools to get these good returns. And Skycoin tries to avoid this by decentralizing these mining pools, and in fact not even having mining pools as such, which goes along with the vision of not doing everything in one centralized location, whether that be mining, the storage of information, the passage of information. The vision is to decentralize it. And this goes on to the monopoly of mining hardware. So we know at the moment ASIC miners, which are really the only miners that can compete on SHA-256 if you want to do Bitcoin Cash, etc. on that algorithm. You can't really do that anymore with GPU mining. It's not powerful enough. So GPU mining now is essentially only for altcoins, and we'll see in future that when certain altcoins get too competitive, you're not going to be able to do GPU mining on that either. You're going to have to go to ASIC mining for everything. ASICs are expensive. They're only provided by Bitmain. There is a monopoly on the mining hardware at the moment. We've heard about Samsung coming in and other companies coming in, but I'm telling you, as a guy on the front line of mining, I don't see it. I've been waiting for it. I hear it, but I don't see it. And if it's there, I'll buy it, but it's not there. Skycoin is coming in with its own hardware, which I'll show you a bit later. It looks pretty good, actually. If you believe that the internet is decentralized, it is in fact not. It is not, because everything goes through internet service providers. This is, and it allows your information to be hacked, compromised, captured, stolen, pushed to third parties without your control or consent, or any reward if you're selling your own information. And this attempts to actually decentralize the internet. Not just our money, think about it, not just our money, but everything. Everything that you do through the internet could be decentralized. It also attempts to avoid selling information to third parties, as I mentioned, which is a result of that centralization. And it really focuses, which this was appealing to me. I heard it a few times since, say it several times, and some of his offsiders, but they're really focusing on the vision of Satoshi Nakamoto. So whether Satoshi was a he or a she or a group of people, no one really knows. We have our suspicions of who it could be, but no one actually really knows. But Satoshi created the white paper for Bitcoin, and from that point the world has grasped that paper, and big things have happened. So moving on to the no fees of this. So this was hugely appealing. There's many things with Skycoin, but when they said there's no fees, I said, well, how is that going to operate? And the way it operates, after digging through this, is that it uses coin hours instead of fees, similar to gas. Now, if you think of like Neo and Neo Gas, it's not exactly aligned to that, but Synthic described it well in the sense that if you hold a coin for an hour, a Skycoin, you'll be paid a Skycoin hour. So it's like a different type of coin. So you've got Neo and Neo Gas, and then you've got Skycoin and Skycoin hours. And the purpose of this is that if everyone's holding their coins and not selling them, it kind of kills the trade in the network that they're trying to establish. So they issue a second coin, which is a coin hour for every time you hold a coin, and that coin itself, as in the coin hour, can be used as a good of value to exchange on the network and then through other, well, it's also new. You could probably, who knows, maybe with a coin hour you could buy a can of soft drink later. I think you could, in my vision, if this is working, you could use both the coins as a store of value and the coin hours as an exchange of store of value. It gets deep, and as I said, I've tried to make this short, but this project is so huge, it keeps getting bigger and bigger. And I heard about scope creep on other projects, and this, when I first looked at it, I thought, wow, that's got crazy scope creep, but I don't think it does, and I'll explain that in a bit more down the track. So we know they hold the coins to earn a coin hour, and the coins and hours are tradable on exchanges. So both the coins and the hours are tradable on exchanges, and this Synth was talking about how quickly their system can actually get onto exchanges. So the Skywire payment protocol, you're going to hear many terms. So Skycoin is the company, is the actual coin, and the company, but within that you have different projects. There's, off the top of my head, you've got Skycoin, Skywire, Obelisk, Skynet, CX, which is a programming. There's a lot of things, and so I was talking about scope creep. They started off with one vision of fixing the blockchain for Bitcoin, and then it kept getting bigger and bigger, and it made sense to me now. It makes sense. Let's think about Google. So right now, I'll use the example of Shazam and Google. So Shazam used to be its own company that you could hear a song on the radio, you'd hold your phone up to the radio, and Shazam was an algorithm or an app, a company that would say, oh, I recognize that song, this is the song that you're listening to on the radio. And that was pretty cool. Shazam was its entire app. Well, now Shazam is dead, because that is just simply an add-on to your Android phone application, when you press the little microphone, if you hold it up to a radio, it'll tell you what song is playing. Same with email. In the olden days, it used to only be like Hotmail, that was it. Hotmail was, or AOL, that was the only one. Well, now Google does Gmail as something on the side. If you think of navigation, we used to have GPSs specifically for navigation, specifically for GPSs, and the GPSs had their specific programs on there. Well, now Google just does that on the side with Google Maps. And Google Play Store, and the movies and the music, and you think of all these specialist industries that used to exist, it's now all in Google. And the same, in my opinion, is happening with Skywire on the blockchain. It makes perfect sense. I've been waiting for this for ages. I have been waiting for the Google of the blockchain, and this appears, at this stage, this appears to be it. And here we go into the Skywire payment protocols again. And as I said, it looked like scope creep, but I don't think it is. I think it all makes sense. It makes sense that these things talk to each other. These things interact with each other. Not only email and storage and cryptocurrencies, but mining and the passage of the information that we send through the blockchain and the fees associated with it, and smart contracts. And on smart contracts, Synth actually believes his words. He says, quote, they're bullshit, end quote. That was really concerning to me, because, as you know, I'm a big believer in smart contracts, and many are as well, looking at Ethereum and Cardano. But I think what he was trying to say is basically Skycoin will have smart contracts in it in itself, a different form of smart contracts, and it will certainly replace Ethereum. Ethereum is dead. Ethereum is completely dead, and I'll talk about that in a second. Everyone using the system can benefit from the Skywire payment system. So nodes act as micro internet service providers and earn Skycoins for powering the network. So unlike having a centralized ISP, they're talking about having lots of nodes, hundreds, possibly thousands, tens of thousands around the world, and these nodes will act like mini ISPs. Now, please forgive me, I am not a computer programmer or a internet software engineer, but when you actually start to listen to all of this stuff, it kind of makes sense. You know, with ISPs, everything is centralized to these two internet providers. Again, using America as example, you've got two internet providers. That's it. If we could break that up and have 600 or 1,000 or 10,000 nodes, that is the next step to decentralizing, truly decentralizing the internet. And this is part of Internet 2.0, of which they refer to. There's also an escrow system that automatically settles payments. This is a type of a smart contract that we've seen in some of the other systems where, you know, let's say you and I are business partners, we're going to buy a business together, I put in 100 grand, you put in 100 grand, they sit in an escrow account as such, and when we actually want to sign off and buy that business property, whatever the asset is, the escrow account will release those funds, my 100 grand and your 100 grand, and the payment will be complete. The reason why you have escrow accounts is because if you and I are going to business, and I say, all right, Jono, just you give me the 100 grand and I'll go buy the business tomorrow. Well, you give me your 100 grand and I go to Mexico and you never see me again. That's why we have escrow accounts. And the escrow system within Skywire makes perfect sense. When we're doing a version of smart contracts where we have to exchange, you know, goods and services, I want to give you this money, but I don't want you to have the money until I've got, for example, the car that I just purchased in my driveway. An escrow system will enable that to happen, and Skycoin has already thought of that, and it appears they're going to implement it into their system. So the Skywire payment protocol is an alternative to the current internet, and it's aimed towards a decentralized mesh network. So this is on their website. Again, I'm not a computer programmer or internet engineer. I don't even know if that's a title, but it shows, it illustrates how they decentralize this payment protocol to firstly reduce, well, they say avoid fees entirely, which kind of makes sense because it's not going through a third party or a central body or one central system where people can take cuts. And they talk about the miners here. They say that, you know, I'm a miner, as you know, but they talk about the miners always want to put their fees up. Now, personally, I don't have any control of that, but the mining pools have some control over those fees, whereas through this mesh network, those fees will be non-existent. And of course, it's cheaper, faster, and better quality, everything that's going through there. So let's talk about the Sky miners. They're making new miners. As we know that there's only ASIC at the moment through Bitmain that do the miners, and they use crap loads of energy. You've seen the upgrade of power that I had to do for my my mere 14 miners. Here we've got, these ones are custom built to support the network. They haven't been built by a third party, although we know in this arms race of technology it could be built by a third party. That is, there's nothing stopping you and I making our own GPU mining systems, or it'd be difficult, but you could do it. If you had the actual hardware, you could make your own little ASIC miner, but evidently it can't be done on a mass scale, because we can see that Bitmain is a monopoly. If it were that easy, surely someone like Samsung, who's tried to get into the space, would do it overnight. So it's not that easy, which is why Skycoin are making Sky miners, which are fantastic units, and I know that my Bitmain ASIC miners will be worth nothing in probably less than 2 years. But then I've already put my name down for the Sky miners. For your reference, if you want to buy a miner from Skycoin, a Sky miner, I couldn't get a price on it, but you put your name on a waiting list, and I'm currently I think 5,328 on that waiting list, which is I'd like to be number 20 on the waiting list, but I think number 5,000 out of a whole world. Let's see what happens, and as soon as I get that miner, I'll show you all about it. But it's cheap comparative to what we've buying through. You know, you can't buy GPU, you can't buy graphic cards at the moment. You can, but you pay top dollar, and as you know, there's just a shortage out there. And I feel sorry for gamers. Let's say you've got nothing to do with the crypto space, and you just want to go out and get a graphics card. Well, good luck. First of all, you're going to pay top dollar. Second of all, you're going to have difficulty finding one, because the really good ones are bought up by people like me, essentially, who are making money off them. But these ones are cheap, easy to run, and they're quite good to look at as well. Energy efficient, use far less energy than the ASIC miners, which doesn't surprise me. The ASIC miners are just out of control. They're just using so much, and they talk about the plug and play functionality potential. So this is where you would essentially, you know, the future, their vision, not mine, although I'd like to share it, is they basically, you want a Sky miner at home. Imagine you've got like a little thumb drive or something that looks like something that could just plug in externally, like a, I don't know, Raspberry Pi or something like that. You simply plug it into your USB and away you go. You're now mining, and you've now got essentially money coming in. So let's talk about fiber. This is, I mentioned before why Ethereum is dead, and this is why, in my opinion, if this is real, if Skycoin, that, what I mean by if this is real, I can only go off the hours and hours and hours of research I've done in this company, looking at their site, reading to other articles about it, listening to other channels, listening to their interviews. I cannot tell you right now that this works. I can tell you that they say it does, and although parts of it's still under development, they believe it will continue to work. And I tend to agree with them that it makes sense. Now, the reason why Ethereum will die, for many reasons. I've never really liked Ethereum, as you know. I think the coin itself is okay, but the problem is that its application in real world, it's constantly exploited. At the moment, you've got that many ICOs out there who are exploiting the ERC20 token and the Ethereum network by basically going to Mr. Ethereum and saying, here's our new ICO, give us some ERC20 tokens, let's make lots of money. And all of these projects are basically crammed into the Ethereum network. And Synth was explaining that when a new ICO comes out, the Ethereum network will go down for a certain amount of time. Now, of course, if you're a provider, say an energy provider, you cannot just suddenly have your network go down for 2 hours while a new ICO is going through. Fiber is a completely different system. Fiber is essentially infinitely scalable. So unlike us cramming everything into the Ethereum network, and arguably even Cardano, where you're getting into these smart contracts, and I'm a believer in Cardano, but after this I'm thinking, well, maybe I should start selling out of Cardano in a year. Not right now, because it's still coming up, but if fiber comes in, Ethereum is definitely dead. I've already said Ethereum is in trouble, but this, to me, this is the last nail in the coffin for Ethereum. What they do with fiber is, instead of putting everyone on the one blockchain, they give each company its own individual blockchain. So let's say you and I, say I've got a real estate company and you've got a bank, and you and I both go to Ethereum and we say, like, I want to put my real estate company on the blockchain, and we don't know each other, and you put your bank on the blockchain, and we both go to Ethereum. Well, we're both competing on the one Ethereum blockchain, and it crams it up. It makes it slow. It makes it difficult. Whereas fiber, if we went to same situation, but we both go to Skycoin, and I say, hey, I've got a real estate company, I want to be on the blockchain, I want my own blockchain. They will give me my own blockchain. And in fact, not only will they give me my own blockchain, they'll give me my own blockchain, my own coin, and my own logo with my own wallet. And then I can put it on the exchanges, according to them, within hours. Think about that. As opposed to waiting what we've got at the moment, about 6 to 8 months with Ethereum to get an ICO onto the exchange, they can do it in a day, in an afternoon. Think about the power of being able to not only get your product launch within hours. Of course, you're going to have a lot of background work, but once it's launched and you're on the blockchain, it's your own blockchain. So you can tweak it, you can shut it, you can close it, you can do this, you can do that. Operate your business on your blockchain without competing with all these other monkeys in your space that have nothing to do with you. And that infinitely scalable solution is hugely appealing, combined with the fact that it's highly customizable. So again, if you're doing a bank and I'm doing a real estate, someone else doing, I don't know, music or whatever, we can customize it to us. And Synth was talking about how easily it would be to be customizable in the future. So the example is this. I've made up this example, but it made sense when he told me his version, which wasn't this example, but I'm now putting my own analogy on it. That is, 5 years ago, I couldn't make a web page. I couldn't. I wasn't a programmer. And I'm still not a programmer. But now I can. Now I can get onto something like Wix.com or GoDaddy, or, there's hundreds of them now, that within an afternoon, I can make my own functioning website. And this is what they're talking about. You can make your own functioning, customizable blockchain, and the training that you'll need is far less than to be a cryptographer. And they've even talked about making their new programming language called CX. So, and that goes on to the freedom for third-party development of apps. So imagine you make your own blockchain and then you want to put your own app on your own blockchain. Well, this will enable it to do it. This will give you the freedom to do whatever you want with your business on your blockchain. And this is where it's really exciting for me. It's already in use. This isn't a dream. It's not a theory. It's not an ICO. This is real. This is now. Now, you'll note that at the beginning of my presentation, I said, if this works. Now, what I referred to there is that there's two things. First of all, there are many things that they're doing in this project, and they all need to come together. Some are already in use, some are already operating, but the real big thing is adoption. Facebook never would have worked if people didn't adopt it. Nothing really works unless people adopt it. It may still work, but unless people are already people are jumping on the bandwagon, it kind of dies in motion. But this one is already in use, and each company gets their own blockchain, as I mentioned before, with their own logo and their own wallets. And they're talking about hardware wallets, which I'll get to in a second. And there's no transaction fees, low energy use, and faster transactions. Think of that comparative to Ethereum. I mean, if you've dealt with Ethereum and the ERC20 contracts, and if you're using a Mu or MyEther wallet, it's a nightmare. It is an absolute nightmare. And I'm putting my hand up here. I think I'm doing pretty well in this space, but when I'm using Ethereum, I pull my hair out. It is a nightmare. And this is the next generation. This is 3.0 of that mess that is Ethereum. That will make it smoother, faster, less energy use with everything that we do with it. And I'm not just talking about the mining. I'm talking about, it's submitting an ICO and waiting 8 months. That's a lot of energy, as opposed to sort of sitting down and getting it done, and then you're on the exchange in the afternoon. Pretty exciting stuff. So there's a lot to cover here. I'm trying to move through this quickly, but I want to talk about the other projects that they're doing. This isn't all of them. So there's a lot going on. As I mentioned, there's lots to cover, but I can't do it all. It's too big. They've been working on this for years. But Obelisk replaces proof of stake and proof of work concepts with respect to mining and the values in the coins. This is far fairer if what they're describing is actually functional in real life. We know the shortfalls of both proof of work and proof of stake, and Obelisk is it's the third generation. This will actually replace what we've got. CX is a type of coding that Synth was talking about. Again, I'm not a coder, but he speaks about a whole new coding system that they've made. It should be pretty easy. Gaming is another area, and they're talking about Kitty Cash. In some of his talks, he gets straight into Kitty Cash. In others, he mentions it much later. But the point is, I'm not a gamer, but I know many people who are, and I know the industry is worth billions. And that in itself could be a big one, and I think that's why Synth talks about it a lot. Also hardware wallets, so they're actually, again, we're talking about scope creeping, but it's kind of not. It makes sense. If you've got your own coin and you've got this and you've got that, well, why not have a hardware wallet? You want to make your product, you know, robust and fair and safe, and you want everyone to be involved in it. And I heard on one of his talks, he said that, and I've listened to a lot of his talks, but he basically said, and don't quote me on this number, I apologize, but he basically said if you spent $300 on Skycoins, that'd send you a free hardware wallet. That was a concept. I don't know if they're actually going to go ahead with that, but it kind of goes with the whole company of, you know, the big picture. And there's more. There's much more that they're doing. So this is not all of it. I haven't been able to cover everything because I don't want to keep you, as I said, for 3 hours on this presentation. But the Skywire project itself is an alternative to the current internet. Again, Skywire is another project. It's aimed towards decentralization of a mesh network. It's cheaper, faster, better quality. And now let's get on to the development and team. This was interesting to me. So first of all, it started like 8 years ago. So when Bitcoin was out, all these guys were into it around the team. And a side note, the person who wrote the Skycoin white paper is the person who wrote the Ethereum white paper, apparently. And so that gives you an idea of the caliber of people that are behind this. But essentially you had, you know, all these crypto goers in the past. They saw the problem with Bitcoin. They had all invested in Bitcoin, and they tried to address what was happening with the issues with Bitcoin. And you had this immensely qualified and experienced team that were funded to the eyeballs. So it's quite fun listening to Synth talk about this, because he's being humble, but he's being a little bit arrogant, and I think he pulls it off beautifully. I think the way he says it is like, when it comes to funding, why haven't they done an ICO? Well, they're all millionaires. These guys were in the space 8 years ago when Bitcoin was sort of coming up, and you'll notice that we'll say it's only listed at 2012. It started before 2012, but when these guys were in it years ago, they were buying Bitcoin for under $100, and of course now it's at $10,000 and climbing. Money's not an issue for them. Their words, not mine. And as a result, they can actually, you can see the freedom that these guys have. They have so much money, their words, that they can afford to hire these exceptional project teams to do all this amazing stuff. And with that much funding and that much experience and that much qualification, this is pretty exciting. So this is a big project. I think this is their webpage. It's pretty exciting. This webpage is a huge upgrade to what was happening in the past. It was, in fact, in the past the webpage was disgusting, even their own words for it. But what you want to look here is you can download a wallet, you can buy Skycoin. Although at the moment, if you want to get Skycoin, Cryptopia is the only place it is, not Cointopia. That's a dodgy one. But they're getting on more exchanges. Their aim is to get on more exchanges as soon as practical. So my closing thoughts on this: I think this is a huge project. I think there is massive potential for this. I have invested in this now. I will continue to invest. I have sold all my Ethereum. I didn't have much Ethereum, but because I was mining it, I had a few $100 spare of Ethereum, and I just chucked it into this. But I think I'm seriously going to invest further into this. No, I'm not giving you financial advice. I don't know you. I don't know your situation. I'm not a financial advisor, and even if I were, I couldn't give you financial advice over YouTube. Nonetheless, I can tell you what I'm doing. I'm buying some of this stuff. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next time.